Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final score, where we cover all things sports. Today, we're going to be going over the exciting divisional round of the NFL playoffs, recapping those games and looking ahead to the championship games next week. We actually have, for the first time, all four guys on today. I'm Anthony. We got Jayden, Dylan, Jason, whole crew today. First off, guys, how you feeling about the round of football that we just watched compared to the wild card games?
I think it's one of the better rounds we've seen in a while. It looked for a minute like we were going to get upsets across the board, but I don't think there's been a year where we've seen a 6 or a 7 seed in the championship game in a minute. So it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, was it really, except for, and even the Chiefs Texans game was pretty good, but the other three were probably the best games of the playoffs. I mean, there weren't really any really close wild card games, except for, I
Yeah,
guess,
the wild
Tampa
card
and
games were
Washington.
bad.
Yeah. But we'll start off with the biggest one, the one everyone was looking forward to all week, the Ravens Bills. And I got to kick it over to Jay first because he's the resident resident Ravens guy. Jay, how are you feeling? Talk to me.
I know what people are going to say when we talk about that game. That first half was really rough for Lamar. Two costly turnovers on his end, and a game that I definitely don't think is a script any of us expected. I think we all expected a shootout. Going to be a standard Josh Allen game.
I mean, they
But
still scored high 20s. It's not like
Yeah. But it wasn't a shootout between Lamar and Allen. I mean, Josh Allen didn't throw for a touchdown. He threw for under 130 yards and he rushed for two touchdowns. If I'm looking at it from Lamar's perspective, I think he did enough in the second half to win that game. He had two possessions that should have been scoring drives. Um, the Mark Andrews drop at the end of the game should have tied the game. Not to say that would have went to OT. Josh Allen could have drove down the field. They could have kicked a field goal. But before that, Mark Andrews had another key fumble. So when I look at Lamar, I don't think Josh Allen outplayed Lamar that much. I really don't. Um,
Jayden is
his stats were
itching to
better
get
in
into
just
this.
about every single way,
So
except rushing touchdowns that Allen had. The Bills just had the better game plan, and the Ravens beat themselves. Four turnovers or three turnovers, you're not going to win the game.
Jayden, hold
so.
on. I know you're ready to jump in on this Allen versus Lamar thing, and we'll definitely get there. I want to spend a good amount of time on that, but we got to talk about Mark Andrews first and foremost. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's fair.
that's the most prominent thing to
Yep,
come out of this game.
fair.
For a guy that has been one of the best tight ends in the league for a long time, a staple for that franchise.
They
What
got
a rough.
I
You
mean,
got to
you
feel for him.
saw
What
what
a
I
dude,
rough
was
way to end the
they
texting.
game.
they ran
You
that
saw.
same 2-point conversion play 3 different times, and Mark Andrews dropped each one
I mean, you
throughout the year.
saw what I was
Did they?
saying.
Yeah, they did it against the
Really?
Steelers, and they did.
That's
Yeah, they did
crazy.
it. They did that same play 3 times this year, and it did the
I
same
mean, I
exact.
think if you, I mean, granted, it should have been caught, but I think if you have Lamar and Derrick Henry, I just don't know how you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fault the play call when it. I mean,
No,
he
I mean it's
was
wide
It could
open.
have worked. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, too, I said all game long, and honestly, most of the year, likely is underused. That guy, whenever, like the first game of the year versus the Chiefs in that game where he like blew up with two touchdowns, and it seems like Mark Andrews is done. Likely is. I thought Mark Andrews was older, to be honest. I didn't realize he was only 29. I thought was like mid 30s because he just seemed slow and just not the same player that he used to be. And it was really evident in this game where, yes, he's a legendary player for the Ravens. He's absolutely, you got to treat him with great respect if you're a Ravens fan. But I mean, that guy pretty much lost the game
He
yesterday.
needs security walking through Baltimore right now after a fumble and then dropping the 2-point conversion. I mean, it's not often you can put a game on a skill
But
position player, but it's pretty close to putting that game on Andrews.
yeah, I
Definitely.
mean, you can always argue there's other things that players should have done, stepped up. I also think a key argument is the ball probably should have been placed in Derrick Henry's hands a lot more in the second half than it was because he looked great in the first half. But yeah, if you point to the two most crucial moments in the game where the Ravens clearly had a chance to take the lead or tie the game, send it to overtime, both of them revolved around Mark Andrews. And yet, to argue, I think on the Bills side, I think the Bills kind of this year play a different brand of football with Joe Brady than they have in the past, where it's they might
Run
not
heavy.
they don't have to be the shootout team. I think they can be if they need to be, but with this offense, they're very run heavy and they're methodical and they just get the job done.
Definitely. What one thing quick on the Mark Andrews thing that I have not really seen anybody talk about is first and foremost, Andrews has to catch that. But how good of a ball is that?
Come on.
mean,
It was in his stomach. It was in
okay,
his stomach.
it was not a good ball. He should have caught it.
Caught.
He should have caught it.
It's one of those
Hands
things
down.
where, I mean,
It's
they
not
say
a
if
good
it hits your
ball.
hand,
That is not a good ball.
You do have to catch
He's
it.
falling down, bending over,
You-
running backwards. That ball's got to be up high,
Okay,
out in
it
front
really,
of him,
but it
or at the
really,
letters.
it really.
Look,
but also
he has
where
to
he
catch
threw it, he threw it in a spot where it couldn't get picked off. That's what I think.
But the
Where
pick
he-
doesn't
Andrews
matter.
had
That being,
plenty of space.
well, hold
Getting
up,
picked
wait.
off was not a problem.
I do. The throw wasn't the issue on the 2-point conversion. However, the only thing I will say is I don't know how close the defenders were. If there was anyone in close, Mark Andrews would have been short. If you look at the replay again, he was short of the line to gain.
That I don't know.
Well, if you look at he's diving. That being said, I don't think there was anyone really near him, so I think he would have just been able to slide right in.
Look, again, at the end of the day, that's a professional player, a player of Mark Andrews' caliber, has to catch that ball.
Especially for a
You
tight
just
end.
do.
Tight ends are
But
supposed to
it's
have
not a
the
good
most
throw.
secure hands.
It's not a good throw.
I mean, Gronk would have caught it. Kelsey would have caught it. Likely would have caught it.
He would have.
I'd like to hear what Jayden's got to say about the Bills game, so I can debate this real quick.
All right, let's get into it. Lamar versus Allen. We had a whole pot on this, but we got to go.
I don't know if it should be about Lamar versus Allen. Truly, I just think it's more.
I mean, that's what this game's about. I mean, you got the two MVP candidates. Now, you look at to start off with Josh Allen underplaying Lamar. Statistically, that's correct. That being said, when you look at that game, where does Josh Allen have to outplay him and be the hero? The Ravens come out and score. That was their chance. Now the Bills are down 7-0. Bills lead a touchdown drive immediately. After that, the Bills led the whole game. The Bills got up 21-10 at halftime. Where is the chance for Josh Allen to throw the ball? They're just running because they dug themselves such a big hole that now you only run the ball. Now it's bad play calling if you pass the ball. So it's like, yes, Josh Allen didn't do anything, but that's what we've seen, not to be like Chris Collinsworth, but that's what we've seen out of Mahomes all year is that the Chiefs win games statistically. His stats aren't good, but they can't pass the ball when they're up by 2 touchdowns. You don't do it in the playoffs. You run the ball. So I don't really see where Josh Allen could really go out and make a bunch of plays. And then now going into Lamar, his second half was good. That being said, first of all, you do not get credit for digging yourself out of the hole you dug. He got them down 21-10, and turnover. The fumble gave him a free walk to the 20-yard line. They scored a touchdown there. He got them in the deficit. And then the person that really started digging them out was Derrick Henry on that drive where they ran it. I don't even know. Felt like 10 times rushing.
68 yards.
Pass,
68 rushing yards
and
on
a
that
touchdown
drive.
from Henry on that drive. So realistically,
Henry and Hill
put
together.
them in the hole. Then Derrick Henry got him back, and then Lamar did lead a great 90-yard drive. That was a great drive, no doubt. That being said, I don't see how you can. The whole game doesn't come down to one drive. It comes down to Lamar put the Ravens in a bad spot after the first drive.
I get what you're saying, but I just want to flip the narrative on you for a second because I'm such a supporter of Lamar, but you are definitely a hater of Lamar. If we flip the roles right here, and obviously it's a total hypothetical, but if Josh Allen led a 90-yard game-winning drive where on the drive before his tight end dropped or caught the ball and then fumbled it, turning it over at a crucial point, and then that same tight end dropped a 2-point conversion to tie the game, I think you'd be praising Josh Allen
But
right now.
we wouldn't know because
127 yards.
But
You're changing the rhetoric because it's Lamar.
But we wouldn't know because Josh Allen doesn't do that. Josh Allen in the playoffs, we've seen it against the Chiefs. He plays good. He doesn't play down. He plays up to the level. We've seen him play his best football in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has had.
Not necessarily. There actually was a stat that I saw that like Josh Allen This was the
Well,
first
I'm
game that
talking
he
mainly
had
against the
beaten
Chiefs. I'm talking mainly against the Chiefs. And by the way, now once
It
again,
also was
yes,
a generational finish by the Chiefs to beat him. I mean, we saw some of the
I
best
mean,
football
that
in the
game
playoffs
I
we've ever
I mean, he
seen
threw
changed.
for
from
I mean,
Josh
that
Allen.
game
I'm
changed
not
the
trying to take
overtime
away from
moments.
Josh Allen at
I
all.
love
I'm
Josh
trying to
Allen, but I
say
do like Lamar.
I think there's clearly a narrative with Lamar, where whether he's a James Harden or the Russell Westbrook of the NFL, there's clearly a narrative with him that he's not winning the playoffs. And
Listen to me.
even
Yeah,
with yesterday,
I've
he
got
did
plenty
win.
of playoff stats
yeah,
to
we
talk
gotta
about
make
I just
Lamar's
want
sure
playoff
to
struggles.
I
we
just
gotta
want to
make
say
sure
one
we
more
keep it moving.
I just want to say one more thing about his the knock isn't I'm not saying Allen outplayed Lamar because statistically he really didn't. That being said, they won the game. So what are you gonna I mean, you can't really knock Allen for winning, but the issue is that Lamar we've never seen Lamar's full potential in the playoffs. He's never done it. I mean, in since he's been in the league, Lamar Jackson in the regular season has only had 7% of his games with 2 turnovers or more. In the playoffs, it's 50%. He's played 8 games in the playoffs. He has 4 games with 2 turnovers or more. He plays down. Whether he had, I mean, he did have a good second half, and I was genuinely shocked by that. I thought the game was kind of over. They made it a great game. That being said, he played so poor in the first half that I don't think you can give him all the credit and say nothing's to blame on him because if he plays that first half differently, then it's a whole different game and the Ravens probably win.
And to your point, Jay, about if it was flipped, no, again, I don't think anyone's coming out and saying Josh Allen had a great game because he didn't do anything special. He had a Mahomes game, which was he did basically the bare minimum that they needed to do to win. And if Lamar does that, we're not having this conversation. That's the problem is when you win, you can get away with having a subpar game. When you lose, and when you lose consistently in the playoffs, you can't get away with not performing up to your typical performance level. Just a few quick stats that I dug up on Lamar's playoff woes. Jason's not going to like this. Averaged 219 passing yards a game. This is across 8 playoff games. 13, I'm sorry, about 80 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 7 fumbles, 84.6 passer rating, which, by the way, league average passer rating varies year to year, but it's around 89 to 92. 60% completion percentage on his passes. League average is around about 65. And more turnovers than touchdowns from Lamar.
I said to Jayden last year, Jayden saw me watch that Ravens Chiefs game, and I literally said to him after the game, I'm like, I don't think he's ever going to win because of how he has played in the playoffs. I'm saying with last night's game, I didn't see a Lamar that I've seen previously in the playoffs. To me, he looked like he's grown. Like the Ravens could have won that game very feasibly. And I know Lamar has choked in the playoffs before. I think this is progression for Lamar. And where last year I was lost on him saying, I don't think he's ever going to win. I don't really still feel that way. I think if Lamar has the same roster next year and has a healthy team, I think the game could go the other way and we could
And let
win
me
the AFC Championship.
I don't disagree because I do think that the Ravens are a good enough squad to win. That being said, what we've watched with, I mean, just on paper, the Ravens are a significantly better team than the Bills. That's why it was Josh versus Lamar because the Ravens were better all around. They have Derrick Henry. They have a better
Yes,
defense,
Ravens defense, the first half of the year was, I think, 27 for ranked defense, but
but in the second half they were good, and the Bills were the
they
Ravens
got
defense is better than the Bills, at least now. And obviously, Lamar was without his number one receiver. That being said, now they're just even because the Bills have nothing on the receiving end. They still have Derrick Henry.
big
What
18.
else can you? I mean, that Ravens team wouldn't have beat. And now, well, I mean, you never know, but I don't think if they play like that, they're losing to the Chiefs too. If Lamar comes out and gives that, they're not winning a Super Bowl. I just don't see it. Now, I'm not saying Lamar can't play better because I do think he can. Because I mean, he's obviously unbelievable in the regular season. He's a great player, and eventually he can break through that. But he did not play good enough in that game to think that now he's automatically this playoff star. It was a mediocre game and a poor game for his standards because Lamar in the regular season is averaging 270 yards, no interceptions, 3 passing touchdowns, 100 rushing yards. We see this heroics in the regular season. That's why, because we do know how great Lamar really is, but he doesn't play like that in the playoffs. It was a mediocre game.
We could probably go on all night with a heavy Lamar fan and a heavy Lamar hater. But long story short, Ravens are done. However you want to slice it, Lamar didn't live up to his normal standards. Josh Allen, gets by with the win. We have a Bills Chiefs conference championship next round. But let's go into the other game from yesterday, the Rams and the Eagles, which was, I thought, one of the coolest games to watch. Something about the playoff atmosphere and the snow.
The snow was cool.
Yeah. So Eagles take that one 28-22. Any thoughts, takeaways from this game?
I think you can clearly see Saquon's impact on that team. I mean, but I think on the opposite side, it was a great game for both teams. Stafford looked amazing. The Rams continued to defy expectations. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles looked like the team they did 2 years ago when they made the Super Bowl, but the difference is now they have Saquon Barkley. So really, they have no ceiling.
I think the thing now, obviously a big snow game, the whole offense is going to play differently. But I think the only weakness I see is that, first off, obviously Hurts injury hurts them. But they're relying pretty heavily on Saquon Barkley to get 180 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns to scrape by a win against a lesser team. So to me, I think even though Saquon is unbelievable, I'm not that high on Hurts. And I did see that. I do think that I think the Commanders got a very good chance of going to the Super Bowl.
I think the winner though is I don't think it's coming out of the NFC unless Hurts, like the Eagles play a great game, Saquon has a great game defense. Hurts just manages the ball well, which is possible, kind of like Nick Foles did when the Eagles won. It's possible, but I think the winner's probably Bills or Chiefs.
I'd argue that the Commanders have a better chance of winning only because of Jayden Daniels. I mean, really, but I think that they have they have a better offense to me, even though I just don't know if you get up against a really good defensive scheme team.
I don't know if they got it better. I think they've got more momentum. What the Commanders have right now is momentum. 50% of their team is not good. They have belief in themselves and they're being coached up amazingly.
And I agree with all that, but we've seen teams.
They are not the better team and it's not close.
We've seen teams like this
true.
in other sports, and it's very rare that those type of teams actually end up going.
I
agree. Granted, it's an amazing run. They've defied. I picked against them 2 weeks in a row. They look amazing. Jayden Daniels is incredible, but they do have a lot of holes, and eventually that's going to catch up to them. And I think it's probably next week against a divisional rival who knows them well.
The only reason I think that they have a better chance is because obviously the Chiefs' defensive scheme is always good, but we look at what the Bills did. Other than that one drive from Derrick Henry, the Bills pretty much shut him out because they're not going to let them lose to the run game. Now, Saquon's amazing, but we've seen this. We've seen a couple bad games out of Saquon. Nothing crazy, but when the defense is geared completely towards the run, I don't think there's a ton of success in that. I mean,
AJ
we saw it with the
Brown,
Lions, though.
Smith,
the Lions have
Dallas Goedert.
We saw it with the best run team in the NFL in the Lions, and the Commanders shut down enough. They made Goff throw the ball enough.
Gibbs had an incredible game.
Gibbs had a great game against them.
But they did enough though, because they made him pass the ball enough to where the quarterback will start to make mistakes.
I don't know.
Sure,
I mean, they won like 17 points. What are we talking about?
Well,
a lot of
killed them.
Yeah, but it was 31-28 in the fourth quarter.
We're jumping the gun on the.
I wouldn't say they killed them.
On the previews a little bit.
Yeah.
They lost by 3 possessions, but
we'll get a little deeper into the game previews. Right now, we're still doing recaps. So I just want to touch on the Rams quick before we move on, because they were a team that defied expectations this year. They defied injuries. They had a lot of offensive line injuries early in the season. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua both went out with injuries for extended period of time, at least for Puka. And Matt Stafford and Sean McVay, they also had one of the youngest defenses in the league, just full of rookies. And for them to come out, play the game that they did, be in it to the end, I think is a testament to Sean McVay, how incredible of a coach he is, and Matt Stafford. And that defense is only going to get better as they age. So as long as Stafford's, playing the way he is,
And
I don't
if
think they're
Kyron
going
doesn't
away.
fumble that ball, that might be a whole different story too. The
True.
Rams were right there.
That was a
And
pretty
were really
scary
Stafford
pass
fumbled
from
too. Stafford fumbled too.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
And that last play
He
was
5
horrible.
yards out of bounds. I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah, that last play call was bad.
Yeah. As 4 Giants fans, to watch Saquon Barkley have one of the best seasons I've ever watched, and then keep it going in the playoffs and rip off 70-yard touchdown after 70-yard touchdown. It's
Honestly,
tough-
I'm numb.
tough-
I'm numb.
tough
I'm
feeling.
numb. I'm numb to it at this point. I don't know.
But anyways, we'll get into the Saturday games and the upset, shocked the world. Washington Commanders last year win 4 games. No one expected them to come to the playoffs this year. They have a rookie quarterback. Dan Quinn in his first year with the Commanders as head coach. They're kind of in a rebuild. And what do? They go into Detroit, beat the 15-2 Lions. What an incredible game.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about, once again, I'm going to say that was not a blowout. Granted, they won, but I mean, that game was decided on to me, almost 2 plays, which was that putrid Jamison Williams passing call. And I won 4th down in particular, but the multiple 4th down conversions by Jayden Daniels. But that one where they lined up with 12 men on the field.
Yeah.
If they had stopped them there, they had ball and could have taken the lead. And that was in the 4th quarter.
The reason I say blowout is just because it was one of the only football games that I turned off well before it was over. Now, it was close in the 4th quarter, but then it changed real quick. I think by at least the 7-minute mark in the 4th quarter, they were down by 17, which the game was over.
It was a 10-point game, I believe, when Jamison Williams threw that interception.
That was horrible.
Look,
awful.
Ben Johnson's unbelievable. You can't say enough good things about him. But part of why I think the Lions have not lived up to what everyone thought was because I feel like at the end of the day, you kind of gotta. I mean, they were the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
I mean, they were injury, but everyone thought they were going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Second year in a row, they've underperformed in the playoffs too.
At the end of the day, I do think you have to, like, when you're down 10, I don't think you put the ball in your wide receiver's hands to throw a.
Oh no, I agree. That was
pass.
horrible.
That's a bad call. Like,
that
that's not
being said, they should have won this game. That being said, however, the Lions have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and most of their roster was injured. I mean, Hutchinson himself is a gigantic difference.
It is. How many CBs were they missing? They were missing
like 3 or 4.
Carlton Davis.
Yeah,
they lost Amik Robertson, who's been awesome. They lost him right at the beginning of the game. This is an incredibly, incredibly injured defense.
Montgomery wasn't at full health,
No, he wasn't. But and also going to the quarterback thing. So far, we've seen other than arguably the Rams game, we've seen most good quarterbacks win. The better quarterback we've seen win most of the time.
Everybody say it with me. Goff. Goff.
I don't know.
I tried telling you guys.
But Goff can sometimes also look great.
He turned the ball over four times.
Right, but I think the issue with Goff though is playoff football is just different, and the Commanders' goal was to put it in Goff's hands, and every time they did, Goff interception, fumble.
All this being said, I still think the Lions have about a 3-year window.
Yeah.
And I still think next year they got to be behind whoever wins this year, the Chiefs. I still think they're top 3 contender next year. They're going to have their defense back. I do think Goff can win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying he's an elite quarterback, but I do think he can win a Super Bowl.
They definitely have the talent and the window. They're a pretty relatively young team.
A little bit.
Ben Johnson leaving, Aaron Glenn's going to leave. Those two guys,
I think Aaron Glenn's a little.
They lose their defensive play caller and their offensive play caller, and
their offensive play caller was winning them games. It felt
part of the thing that has made the Lions is Ben Johnson's offensive play calling. I think he's a mastermind that has been able
He
to,
is, but then he's also
but
drawing up plays for Jamison Williams to.
But he covers so many of Goff's flaws, and he makes it so the game's very easy. And look, to be quite clear, up until late in that game, did Jahmyr Gibbs and then a couple of incredible Ben Johnson calls. That double end around to Jamison Williams, that was a touchdown. The little it was like a, I don't know if it was second or third down, but it was a pitch to Montgomery where he flipped it to Amon-Ra, who ran for 15 yards. Like big time plays schemed up that was really the only reason they were in the game at that point, because Goff was not doing anything. It was Gibbs and it was incredible scheme by Ben Johnson. Yeah. And I'm not saying they're doomed without him, but I think that's a huge loss. And for what it's worth, Aaron Glenn had that defense competing even when they were down to third stringers. And I mean, Dan Campbell's a good coach. I'm sure that
I still think, all that being said, they're probably like the third like contender next year. If you're looking at odds, they're probably the third.
But we will cover the last game. I mean, not a whole lot to cover. Chiefs were always going to win. And, you know, it was
close early.
It was a good game. It was a good game. I was very impressed by D'Amico Ryans and his defense. He had an atrocious call to go for it.
I think we want to keep it moving. I think the only thing that we have to discuss is what everybody's talking about right now, which is those penalty calls. Even Aikman's calling it out. I mean, Mahomes flopping. I mean, come on. I know it's just me personally. Like, even like last year, like I saw that clip resurface of Allen and Mahomes last year when Mahomes like was upset about an offensive penalty that lost in the game, and he tells that to Josh Allen. It's just stuff like that it's bad sportsmanship, and they're not helping themselves when there are plays that are just pretty clearly normal tackles that are advancing them on third downs every time.
Look, now, I can't stand Mahomes, but when you are that great, you know you're going to get the calls, just like LeBron gets the calls, just like Jordan got the calls. Any great player is going to get those calls, and it's annoying. But Mahomes knows he's hated, so he's just going to go out there and do what's going to win him. I mean, it's annoying.
I can't see Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl, man. I can't do it.
The other thing too is, even though I don't like the whole roughing the I don't like the quarterback treatment. That being said, even though they were very controversial calls, under the report they were called correct calls.
Under the report,
but I still think the
New York ref said that should not have been.
That was the live stream.
I don't like the reports
of the NFL referee said that they were both correct calls.
The way I look at the NFL is that I think, honestly, on every single play, there's probably a penalty somewhere. There's probably a holding. There's probably something. I think it's just a matter of what the refs call, and that's why it bothers me when it's something that's not egregious and it's a third down on a critical play. That's why it bothers me.
I mean, it's awful. Like, I hate watching it. But my point was, I was just saying that even like the rules. Walt Anderson, who's the head of the NFL officiating rules, appeared on the game day, and he said that they were correct calls technically because there was
backing up the NFL.
I mean,
so we could deep dive into the refereeing. That this is always going to be a topic of discussion.
Let's just hope it always was with the Patriots. That's all. Next week, if there's a big play, that's.
So let's get into it. Chiefs Bills rematch. The last time they played, actually, well, I don't know if it was the last time, but that divisional game that they played, one of the best playoff games you will ever watch.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a rematch. I don't think we will, given how the play style is now. I think it's going to be a much more reserved.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think. Well, you say that, but then you looked at the Lions-Bills game earlier this year, and the Bills are still capable of the shootout.
They definitely are. So. They definitely are. But
I'm interested.
Both teams want to play the same way. They want to control the clock. They want to keep the other offense on the sidelines for as long as possible, and they want to, do what it takes. And I do think both teams are capable of going toe to toe, shot for shot. We haven't really seen it from the Chiefs this year, primarily because they haven't needed to for the most part. But what do you think? Let's make some predictions here.
I
Are we
mean,
talking just Bills Chiefs game here?
Yeah.
And strictly that game, it pains every fiber of my being to say I don't see this Chiefs team losing to this Bills team. If they're playing the same brand of football, the Chiefs are going to win.
Yeah.
They have better weapons. They're better coach. Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback. Josh Allen would have to do what he did in that AFC Championship game and play up to Mahomes' level or outplay him to win this game.
which he has
I
before.
think you'll have to outplay him,
He's
to be
done
honest.
that.
Yeah,
But
I am interested to see how this game's refereed, only because these are probably the two most, if anyone's complaining about refs, it's about both of these two teams.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's a fair game. That being said, I don't know what to expect. You kind of expect probably like a 21-17 outcome, like a pretty run-heavy game. I mean, the Chiefs don't really do anything crazy. It's either runs or like a 8-yard pass. So I think
it
it's
might
gonna
be a
slow
boring
moving
game, to be honest. Like everybody's, it could be the opposite. Who knows? But I kind of lean towards it's going to be a boring game, like you're saying. If I had to pick, I picked the Chiefs at the beginning of the season. I'm going to stick to it. Obviously, I'm going to be rooting for the Bills, and I do think they have maybe like a 30% chance of winning this game. I think they could win the game, but given what we've seen this season, to me, it's the Chiefs. I mean, they lost. They lost to the Bills. That was the only real loss they had this year because we're not going to really count that Broncos loss, right? They go 15-2, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep. Bench players at the end of the year. So we all going Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But let's go Bills.
It's definitely not a guarantee. Josh Allen is going to keep it close, and the Chiefs, the way they play right now, seems like every game that they're in, doesn't matter who they play against, is going to be close. Whether they're playing the Panthers or the Ravens or the Bills, it's going to be close because that's just
the only
style that they play.
argument I can make for the Bills, I think that why is it different this year compared to other years? Granted, I think they were maybe more talented 2 years ago. This Bills team, though, to me, does seem to have a bit of a different mentality. And I think they've kind of been quieter and they've been a bit more reserved. I don't know. I think I could see them coming out and just playing hard and kind of getting up early. I could see that outcome for the Bills. And I kind of feel like this could be the year that people, because they weren't expecting it, a lot of people wrote the Bills off at the beginning of this year. This could be the year that the Bills do it. They have a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I was one of those people. Admittedly, I didn't see it, but they've been incredible. NFC Championship, which for many Giants fans, again, is torturous to see Jayden Daniels and the Commanders against the Eagles. But I got to tell you, I really don't care. I love watching Jayden Daniels.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah,
he's
I wish the
incredible.
Giants had him. I mean, I saw that stat today of like the cap hit of what Saquon cost versus what for being Drew Lock. And that is a whole other pod that we will have probably in the next couple of weeks about the Giants. But it's an embarrassment to Joe Sheen. That being said, I do think this game, for the reasons I stated before, I'm picking the Eagles. I think Jayden Daniels is amazing. Probably the best rookie season we've ever seen, maybe. I can't really – I looked and nothing really struck me as better as far as like being the best player on the team and carrying them. And I just think the Cinderella run is going to end somewhere. They don't have enough talent around. The Eagles do. They're experienced. I think it's the Eagles.
I'm going to make the opposite take. I'm going to say the Eagles are the better team. As I mentioned before, their weapons are
very
better.
clearly.
Every
talent-wise, it's not close.
Except quarterback. I mean, Daniels right now, I would take him over Hurts. He's playing better.
Yeah.
But I'm taking the Commanders because you're saying Cinderella story can't go that far. In football, if you get hot, I mean, you can easily rip off 4 games, and that's all you have to do. I mean,
but it hasn't happened before with a quarterback like this. Like that's
so we also haven't seen a quarterback like this.
I really think he's different. I think Terry McLaurin, I've been a huge fan of his for years, and I've said all he needs is a quarterback. He gets a rookie quarterback, and he looks like he's a top 5 receiver in the league. They are not the better team in any game that they are going to play, this game or the Super Bowl. I think they're going to win this game, and maybe I'm going crazy. I legitimately think they could win the Super Bowl.
I'm going to go by history, and I
So
just don't see
here's
that.
the,
think
here's
they're
the thing
winning the
about
same
Jayden Daniels. I just want to jump in here on Jayden Daniels because agreed, Commanders. And look, if I'm picking this game, I'm probably picking the Eagles just because of the talent disparity and because of the Eagles' defense primarily. But Jayden Daniels is such an equalizer in that I can't think of any quarterbacks aside from, the Mahomes Brady types that I've watched, let alone rookies that have his level of poise. If you think about how often they go for it on fourth down, and, in both playoff games, we saw them miss on a big fourth down conversion, go right back to it the next trip and convert again and again and again. And game on the line, he makes big play after big play after big play. Nothing rattles this guy. And I think him and Dan Quinn are such a perfect combination because Dan Quinn really has this group playing like well above their talent level and playing with the confidence that they can win any game. And when you got number 5 behind center, you have as good a shot as anyone to win any game.
I think I'm taking the Commanders for the reason of, first of all, I think, yes, the Eagles' defense is obviously better. That being said, I was surprised with how the Commanders' defense did against the Lions, which I would consider a significantly better offense than the Eagles. And the Eagles, I haven't seen their defense was good. I mean, they gave up 22 to the Rams,
They have a great D line.
They do have a great
And
defensive line.
Cooper
That being said,
DeJean has
though,
been amazing.
the main reason I'm taking the Commanders is because rarely, now not never, but rarely do we see a running back strap the team on their back to the Super Bowl.
He's
We
not
don't
going
see
to
it
have
often.
to, though. I mean, like I said, I'm picking the Commanders, but
I mean, he did against
DJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goddard.
right,
And
but if
Goddard's playing out of his mind.
but if he didn't strap them on their back, they would have lost to the Rams.
I think
I mean,
it's
it was
different than
78 yard. It was two
Granted,
70-yard
we're running out
touchdowns.
of time. We're running out of time, but I think
You
it's
could
different
basically
than
throw
like
out
the
anything
Derrick
that happened in
Henry.
that Rams Eagles game too because of the weather. I mean, that's an outlier
you
game.
have to run
Didn't he
in the
have? Didn't he
snow.
have like one? What do you have against the Packers? 150.
Yeah, but
I
that's
don't
just an
know.
average
Something
game
like
for
that. Yeah.
Saquon, man. I mean, he breaks off like 80-yard runs.
But Hurts
So
is
we've got
capable
two
of
Commanders and 2 Eagles. Is that what our takeaway is here?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
don't think Hurts. I'm not huge on Hurts. I wasn't huge on Goff. I think if the Commanders try their best to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hand, I think that the Commanders will win.
I think he'll get it done. A divisional rival. I think.
Yes, I
Hurts
mean the
will-
Commanders are also a divisional rival.
Yeah,
split
but
Both ways.
yeah.
They did split games. Granted, Jalen Hurts left in the first quarter of the second game, costing me a fantasy playoff game. But that's discussion for another time. But Saquon, exploded in both of those games, and we'll see. Commanders have not shown the ability to slow down the run against the Eagles. They got gashed pretty consistently by the run against the Lions too. One thing too is Lions turned the ball over 4 times and still scored 31 points. Eagles don't tend to turn the ball over.
I mean, neither did the Lions though up until that game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Jared Goff had another game this season where he throws 5 picks, so he's prone to have a few games like that every now and then. I think that another thing we haven't even mentioned is Hurts' injury, because I do think that'll play a pretty big factor into this. If Hurts' running ability changes so much for that offense that if he can't move, then that's gonna play a big role. But I think we're split, right? 2 Eagles, 2 Commanders. Yep. Either way, we have an awesome championship round in store for us, and we're running out of time, so we're gonna have to wrap this up now. But we could keep talking about some of these things for the rest of the night, and we'll definitely revisit some of these topics in the future. But thank you guys for hopping on to discuss, and thank everyone for listening. I look forward to recapping the championship